Testing. Testing.
Well, welcome everyone. I'd like to call this meeting, the El Paso People's Hearing of the Legislative Progressive Caucus, to order. I want to be brief in my introductory remarks, just because this hearing isn't about us and the members who are here, but it's ultimately about you and the people who are here in attendance. I very much appreciate everybody's attendance here, not only here in the audience, and my colleagues who have traveled some way to be here. El Paso is the second stop on the Legislative Progressive Caucus. I want to call it tour, but I would say field hearings that are happening in various communities. And we often have discussions here in our community and as members. What more can we be doing to amplify the people's voice? What more can we be doing to speak out against a lot of what is happening every day in our communities? And what more can we be doing to give a voice to the people who don't often have a voice in Austin? Too often, when you go to these types of hearings in Austin, they're often attended by one group in particular, and that's lobbyists. Lobbyists who get paid to be in the room, to get paid to be there, and they're often the ones that are providing the public testimony. And so many Texans, would have to take a day or two off of work to go to Austin and to give testimony to have their voice heard. And that's why I think a lot of people feel that their government just isn't working for them, or their government leaders aren't listening to them. The People's Hearing series was designed to combat that, and again, to amplify the people's voice and to have our leaders go directly to the public to hear directly from you. So that's why I want to be brief in my remarks and just express my gratitude to you for being here. I just want you to know that I am going to do, this is, first of all, a very well-attended hearing. And I'm just, so thank you so much. I think it sends a strong message that the more people that we have here, the more likely we will have more of these field hearings here, and the more likely we will have more members from across the state coming here to hear your testimony. This meeting is going to be transcribed, and I'm going to prepare a report for members not only of the committee, but of the entire Democratic caucus, so that they know the testimony that was provided here today. So I encourage everybody to sign up. If you sign up, your name will be included as part of the committee report. And we'll be sure that, again, that will go to every member of the Democratic caucus. So if you haven't already signed up, please do so. There's still an opportunity to sign up in the back. We're going to have some hearings on immigration and public schools, but then we will have other panels that are going to be sort of open forum. I don't have to go into detail about why these issues are important, immigration and public education, and that list is by no means exhaustive, which is why we have the public panels to hear on a variety of issues. Just due to time constraints, we had to limit it to two topics on these panels, but the rest of the forum is open to public testimony. So don't feel that in any ways you're limited to these topics that we are going to be discussing and hearing from experts today. The members from the House of Representatives here are two distinguished members who I have tremendous respect for. Representative Cristina Morales is a representative from Houston. She's also the chairwoman of the House Democratic Campaign Committee. She often prides herself on having the most progressive voting record in the House of Representatives. She is a true warrior. And you can always count on Representative Morales to be on the right side of the issue. We also have Representative John Bryant. And Representative Bryant served in the House of Representatives years before he was a current representative. He went on to become a member of Congress, went on to obtain the rank of ambassador in the U.S. State Department, and then came back to the Texas House of Representatives. So the fact that you have somebody with his tenure and his background coming to El Paso just to receive testimony directly from people here, it says a lot about the type of fighter he is in Austin. And these are two representatives who I consider mentors who have really shaped my first year in office. And I just want to thank them for coming here to El Paso. So, just very quickly, I'm very proud to have all the panelists here with us today on the immigration panel. We have the El Paso County delegation. We have the El Paso County Judge, Ricardo Samaniego, El Paso County Attorney, Cristina Sanchez, and County Commissioner Ileana Holguin, who are going to talk about immigration. I just want to thank them for their participation. And then on third, we're going to have Norma De La Rosa, who is head of the TSTA, right? Or the TSTA here in El Paso. Jaime Abetia from YTA, and Yvonne Salazar from Socorro AFT, joining us to talk about education and all the issues that we've heard about public education, or with the job losses, the cuts to education are going to be discussed here today. But just some quick ground rules, just so we can get through as many people as possible. There is going to be a 3-minute time limit on everybody's testimony. And again, it's not to, please don't take offense if you get cut off after the 3 minutes. It's just intended so that everybody who made the effort to be here can have their voices heard in this hearing. And again, it's going to be transcribed, and there's going to be an official transcript for this hearing. With that, I'll turn it over to Representative Morales. I think I was able to stay on time. And so thank you, Representative Morales, for being here. And if you'd like to say a few words, we'd appreciate it.
Sure thing. Thank you, Representative Perez, and so proud to be here with Representative Bryant and the entire panel here. You're here on a Monday night. This room is full. That says a lot about what we're doing here today. And listen, I didn't come 750 miles to tell El Paso about El Paso. I'm definitely here to listen to you and what is going on at Camp East Montana and Socorro. You know it better than anybody in Austin, Houston, or anywhere else. And I'm here to stand with you because what is happening here and some of what is happening in my district is the same story. Just to give you a little bit about myself, I represent Texas House District 145. It's the East End, Segundo Barrio, Magnolia Park. And my family opened the first Spanish language radio station in the entire Gulf Coast. They were the ones that connected immigrants to jobs in Houston. And I always feel like that's the reason Houston is the biggest city in Texas, because we were so welcoming to immigrants for so many years. But now it doesn't feel that way. It feels like we've taken a huge step back. Just today, before I was coming over here, a friend was messaging me on Instagram telling me about a friend of hers who has been detained and they don't know what to do. They're trying to raise money for a lawyer. They have a GoFundMe account. They don't even know where the person is right now. And we keep getting calls like this every day. This is horrific. And the hardest thing to talk about today is that 2 weeks ago, just a mile and a half from where I live, Lorenzo Salgado Araujo was shot and killed by ICE on his way to work in Magnolia Park. His son asked our city to protest and to protest loud and to go home safely to their families. And business owners closed their businesses in his memory the other day. They decided to shut down for a day. Listen, this man had no criminal history, and we found out later that that wasn't even their target. The family members watched him die on Facebook. It is outrageous what is happening. People in my community are afraid to go to work. They're afraid to go to school. And I want you to know that we saw this coming, not this last legislative session, the 89th, but in the 89th legislature. And I saw it right in front of my eyes because I was the vice chair of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus, and we fought so hard against SB 4, which now we're seeing all over the nation. We warned people that there would be rogue agents and rogue operations, because we kept telling them, this is going to be like the Proud Boys coming into Texas to try to get themselves an immigrant. That's what we see now. And we warned that it was literally written in the bill that they would have full immunity And that's what we're seeing now. Mr. Salgado Araujo, who passed away in Houston, we still don't know the officer's name who pulled the trigger. And that is outrageous. Is he still out working for ICE? We don't even know. All we know is that they've said he's been removed from our state. But worst of all, and what you're experiencing here, is that all of this is a money-making scam. And that's what I hope we get to today. Just like our schools, money being given to private schools, it's a money-making scam, and it does such a disservice to our community and to our children. Listen, I don't want to take any more time, but I am just incredibly grateful to be here, and I want to thank those of you who are here to testify and those of you who are here to listen with us. Thank you so much, Representative Perez.
And a few words from Representative John Bryant.
Thank you. It's great to be here in El Paso, and I'm grateful to Representative Vince Perez for organizing this and for getting us here today. I think one of the best outcomes of this hearing could be that everybody begins to see that the problems that El Paso is facing in public education are shared by everybody in the state. I know El Paso Independent School District has declared a financial emergency, that Socorro has had to cut programs, that I think it's his letter has had to lay off teachers. In any event, whether I've got the details right or not, the fact is in Dallas, we're running a $70 million deficit. This is the case in district after district after district, because we live in a state that's been under the control of the same political party now for 30 years. And as a result, now, instead of being very close to the top in public education when we had Governor Ann Richards, today, Texas is 47th in the nation in the state effort, the state expenditures to support the public schools. And that is the basic reason why we are having all of these problems. So I'm delighted to be here to help provide a forum for each of you who come forward to talk about public education. And I would also say we're all sharing the same problem with regard to these detention centers and the outrages being committed by ICE. We have in our region, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, a detention center also. And unfortunately, we're beginning to see with these detention centers that it's largely the case. They're not detention centers, because the detention center is one in which you can get out if you have the legal right to get out. These detention centers are facilities in which nobody gets out unless they're either deported or they're dead. We ought to be calling them concentration camps until they decide to make them something closer to what they are calling them. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. Very flattered to be here with the leadership of El Paso County, too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Bryant. Well, let's get to our first panel. And again, El Paso, has unfortunately been on the forefront of this immigration battle that we've seen what's happening nationally, where there's mass arrests, mass detention, and mass deportation. And too often there's a link with these detention centers and what is happening on the enforcement level with big companies and profit margins, with these companies who run these detention centers. And the more people who are arrested, the more profit that often flows, to these entities. And so here in El Paso, we have Camp East, Montana, which has already had documented cases of deaths and abuses and violations. And we also had, the Socorro facility where ICE was looking to build one of those super detention facilities with 8,500 people. So here to talk more about it, our first panelist is we have County Judge Samaniego. Thank you for joining us here today.
Representative Perez, thank you so much for your leadership. And I'm very fortunate. I've got two individuals that really understand Commissioner's Court. As you know, he was a commissioner, and we also have our Congresswoman Escobar, who was actually a county judge. And so this is the there's sort of overarching things that I'd like to address. One of them is to thank all of you for being here, because I think one of the things that it's so difficult, we're so far away from the Capitol, that it's very difficult to understand the complexity of a border community. being right next to Juarez, being right next to New Mexico. And so we really appreciate and encourage you, if you have other representatives and legislators that would come to visit El Paso, we're very privileged and we're very happy to be able to host. The other thing, I just want to real quick recognize two great individuals. We've got our former county attorney, Joanne Bernal, and we have our Judge Chu here, because everyone here in different ways has a platform. And I'm hoping that what happens today, that you take advantage of your platform, because I see some individuals that have incredible platforms that could reach a lot of people. And that's what we need right now in El Paso, is just to have that consistency of understanding what is really troubling us, what's our big challenges. One of the most important things that, and of course, Michael Apodaca, our Democratic chair, is here as well. So thank you for being here. But one of the things that I think has worked very good for El Paso is that we draw the line in the sand and we draw it deep. And then we do everything possible to make sure that we're not okay when we're offended, that we don't determine that something's normal when it isn't normal. And I think we're very unique in that, and it's a community that comes together, and the way we've handled immigration has been just unbelievable. The humanitarianism that took place, the dignity, how we did everything possible to make sure that we did the right thing and that we followed the Constitution. And if you follow the Constitution, so many great things happen. When you decide that you can put it aside, some very bad things are going to happen. So we thank you for being here. The other thing is that one of the things that is very difficult for El Paso is unfunded mandates. And one of the biggest unfunded mandates could be having a detention center here in El Paso. And I want to clarify that we're the kind of community that just doesn't fight for not having a detention center here in El Paso. We fight that a detention center shouldn't be anywhere in the United States. It's complicated. They're not going to be able to handle it when you've got 10,000 people under one roof and have it just doesn't work. There's going to be horrible things happening. So we know that that's not going to be. We're not going to allow that to happen. But the unfunded mandate is really looking at the economic. I mean, we from El Paso, we think from the humanitarian side. But if you look at the economic impact that it would have on our community, it would be devastating. The infrastructure, we've dealt with Lone Star and all the impact it had on us. And that's a small one compared to a detention center coming to El Paso. So we thank you for being here. We're waiting for your questions so that we can address them. But this is such an important opportunity to get other individuals, not from El Paso, to listen to the stories and the concerns that you have. Once again, Representative Perez, thank you for doing this. Thank you.
And next up, somebody who needs no introduction, our county attorney, Christina Sanchez, who's also been at the forefront of this immigration fight.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative. Thank you for the Texas Legislative Progressive Caucus for convening this people's hearing. So important to have everyone's voices heard. So I wrote my remarks. I can make that 3 minutes. So Christina Sanchez, I serve as your El Paso County attorney, and I want to share with you a little bit of some background of why we initiated litigation against the federal government under the Freedom of Information Act to obtain transparency regarding federal plans to expand immigration detention in our community. Over the past several months, the county has repeatedly requested records from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, concerning the proposed detention facility site in Socorro. These records include planning documents, environmental assessments, funding proposals, feasibility studies, and communications between federal agencies and state or local entities. Basic information every community deserves. Understanding these plans are not optional for this community. It is essential to protect the health, safety, and welfare of El Paso County residents. Despite submitting a formal FOIA request in February, the federal government did not comply with FOIA's mandatory 20-day response deadline. Instead, ICE issued automated acknowledgements, partial information, or no meaningful response at all. The scale of what is being proposed matters. A detention facility of the magnitude described could place unprecedented demands on our region's water infrastructure, emergency services, public health systems, and environmental resources. That is why transparency is not just a legal requirement, it's a public safety requirement. As I've stated publicly, communities deserve to understand what is happening in their backyard, what risks may exist, and what plans are in place to keep people safe. Our FOIA lawsuit seeks a federal court order declaring ICE failure to respond unlawful and compelling, and to respond and to compel them to immediately disclose all records related to their plans. We will continue to push for full compliance because meaningful oversight is impossible in the dark. I also want to emphasize, just as the county judge did, that El Paso County is committed to acting responsibly with the information received. Transparency helps ensure that policy decisions, whether federal, state, or local, are grounded in facts rather than assumptions. It ensures that any expansion of detention capacity does not proceed without a clear understanding of its impact on our natural resources, our public institutions, and our community. This FOIA litigation is not a political act. It is a public accountability act. The people of this region have a right to know what is being planned, how decisions are being made, and how federal actions may affect their neighborhoods, their environment, and their tax dollars. We will continue pressing for the records the law promises and continue working with partners across government to protect the well-being of our community. Thank you for convening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you, County Attorney. Next, another fierce advocate in our community, County Commissioner Ileana Olguin, has also been on the forefront. The detention center is actually located, the proposed detention center is located in Socorro, the area that she represents, and she's also been at the forefront of this issue, pushing back on the federal government's plans. Commissioner Olguin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ileana Olguin, and I am the El Paso County Commissioner for Precinct 3, which includes the beautiful and historic city of Socorro. I want to thank Representative Perez and the Texas Legislative Progressive Caucus for hosting a people's hearing here in El Paso and for giving me the opportunity to address you tonight regarding the detention facility that DHS plans to build in the city of Socorro, a facility that will forever change the character of our beautiful Mission Valley, where nearly 350 years of shared history, tradition, and culture unite us. Thank you for providing the public with an opportunity to comment on this incredibly important issue and for coming all the way to El Paso to hear the concerns and fears of our community related to this new facility. I first learned of this proposed facility on January 20th, ironically, while in a meeting with other governmental entities where we were discussing the challenges that our area is facing as a result of a tremendous increase in residential and commercial development. As soon as I left that meeting, I immediately reached out to our county attorney to ask that an item be placed on the Commissioner's Court agenda so that we could try to figure out what, if anything, the county could do to try to stop the building of this facility. At that next Commissioner's Court meeting on January 26th, over 200 residents provided public comment, all of it in opposition to this facility. We listened to more than 7 hours of public comment that day, and I can honestly say that I have never been more proud of how quickly our community came together to speak out against a facility that will stand as a symbol of everything that goes against our values here in El Paso County, where we understand what it means to welcome the stranger and how we are called to treat the least among us. The Commissioner's Court understands that this facility will have a significant community impact, and we share the public's concerns about the facility's use of our natural resources, the lack of transparency, and the lack of public input. Further, we share the public's very serious concerns regarding the reported abuses and substandard conditions at the detention facility that already exists on Fort Bliss. The county stands with its residents in demanding that the federal government follow the rule of law with regards to immigration enforcement, that they ensure transparency and accountability with how DHS spends its appropriated funds, and provides for the well-being of individuals who are detained not just in our community, but in countless of other communities as well. The county continues to work closely with our partners at the Emergency Services District Number 2 and the Lower Valley Water District so that we can ensure that any proposed facility will meet every standard required by law, whether it be related to fire suppression, adequate water and wastewater services, and the provision of emergency services. We continue to work with the municipalities that will be most affected by this proposed facility and are incredibly grateful to the cities of Socorro and San Elizario for passing ordinances seeking to limit the building of these types of facilities within their city limits. We understand the importance of continuing to work with all of our community partners, as only by standing together can we hope to stop this facility from coming to our community. To everyone here tonight and to every El Paso County resident concerned about the building of this facility in our community, please know that the county stands ready to do everything within our power and lawful authority to stop this facility from coming to fruition. Thank you.
I'm now going to give the opportunity to the representatives if they have any questions. Just a couple of points that I would like the representatives to know. I did prepare some briefing materials for them, so they got some briefing on the issues here, particularly here in El Paso. But as to the judge's point, he talks about unfunded mandates. And when you talk about these facilities, one thing that a lot of people don't realize, when you take the case of Socorro, that was a private facility that was contributing to the tax rolls. And then when it's purchased by the federal government, it now becomes a government building, and now there's no tax money associated with that facility going to the schools, going to the counties. So even just the acquisitions of these large properties are costs just in and of themselves. In this case, the facility DHS was going to become the #1 consumer of water by far. And the levels of consumption of water actually exceed that of some data centers in the state, just to put that in perspective. Secondly, when it comes to an unfunded mandate, when you look at the measles, there's been measles outbreaks here in our community. And that's another public safety issue that comes with some of these facilities. Third, I wanted the members to be aware that there was the first case, or the first death here at Camp East, Montana. County is responsible for the medical examiner's office. The medical examiner ruled that first case a homicide. So what did the federal government do? They stopped sending future deaths to the county and sent them over to Fort Bliss so that there's no public accountability. But I just wanted to raise those points. Some of those are in your briefing materials. If you have any questions, I just wanted to open that up to the members. And if none, okay, yes.
So how has that impacted the daily life here? But also, I know you said you've tried to create some policy and legislation around this, and has that been effective?
So the facility is not open yet, but we've been working very closely with the Lower Valley Water District to make sure that DHS understands that these facilities, as Representative Perez mentioned, these were meant to be warehouses. These were meant to store goods that were going to be shipped internationally. So when they were not built with the necessary infrastructure to hold potentially thousands and thousands of people. So the Lower Valley Water District has really tried to make sure that DHS understands that these warehouses are physically not capable of housing people. Unfortunately, DHS doesn't seem too bothered with that, but we keep making sure that they understand that. Our Emergency Services District also has been very straightforward with DHS about how these facilities, again, were not meant to house people. They don't have the appropriate fire suppression systems. The impact to our Emergency Services District is going to be tremendous, and that we actually have already seen, even though the facility is not open yet. Our ESD has already had to go out and buy another vehicle because it knows that it will need it when this facility opens. And that's at a cost of $2.5 million that the El Paso County taxpayer is paying. The reason they had to do it now is because these trucks take about 3 years to be manufactured and delivered. So DHS is saying that they want this facility. First, we had heard September of this year. Luckily, that hasn't happened and it's been pushed out. But regardless, our ESD had to make that $2.5 million purchase of additional fire equipment in order to prepare for the number of people that are expected to be at this facility. So that has already started costing our county residents money. The county, unfortunately, like all counties in Texas, we don't have the ability to regulate the type of development like cities do. So we can't pass some kind of ordinance or order prohibiting these types of facilities. But thank you to the help of our county attorney, she's been working specifically with the city of Socorro to try to help them as they try to pass ordinances limiting these types of facilities. As I mentioned, both Socorro and San Elizario, which is Socorro's neighbor to the east, have both passed those types of ordinances. And I'm just very thankful that our county attorney has made herself and her office available to a lot of these smaller entities that just don't have the resources to do a lot of the work that needs to be done as we continue to fight this facility.
Representative Bryant.
Thank you. Well, this is possibly more of an observation, but I guess I'm looking for a confirmation that it's happening here as well. But this hearing is about immigration and education, and the place where those two things come together is that when you have the kind of a deportation operation going on that we have in the United States today, you have parents that are afraid to take their children to school, which means you have fewer people in the school. And one important fact for everyone to know is that in Texas, we fund our schools on the basis of average daily attendance. And when attendance goes down, the school districts, which are already underfunded, lose students and lose funding. And I'm just wondering if that's played a role here in the El Paso School District and the other districts that we've been talking about, like it has in Dallas.
That's actually a perfect segue into our next panel that's going to focus on education. And this is happening all throughout Texas, where public schools are losing tens of millions of dollars every year. Unfortunately, the legislature, did not, before there was a historic investment in public education, the legislature this year only increased by $55 the student allotment, to Representative Bryant's point that it's funded on daily attendance. A fact that people don't often know is that when you actually look at the enrollment in our public school systems, 53% of children are Latino. When you look at kindergarten and pre-kindergarten levels, 63% of pre-kindergartners, about 4 years old, are Latino. So yes, that tells you about the impact on the state. There is state data that roughly gives, the impact of enrollment and citizenship. But really, our legislature has been at war, not only here in public education, but also higher education as well. But to turn it over, I think it's a great segue to Norma De La Rosa, so she can give her testimony.
Thank you, Representative Perez. I'm Norma De La Rosa, and I'm president of El Paso Teachers Association. And what we see happening today is basically a dismantling of public education, not just here in Texas, but across the United States. And why is that happening? Why are we seeing our public schools decline as quickly as they are declining? We're seeing the dismantling of our public schools by what we see happening with our legislature, by what we see happening with our state board, and what we see happening with the Texas Education Agency. And we talk about the curriculum, what has happened with the curriculum right now. There seems to be no longer any separation of church and state as far as what teachers are now going to be required to teach in our classrooms. We see the Texas Education Agency finding ways through test scores to take over school districts. We have seen what has happened in Houston ISD. We are seeing what is happening in Fort Worth. And of course, most importantly, is funding. We, as Representative Perez said, a $55 increase in student allotment. We hadn't seen an increase in student allotment in so many legislative sessions, and this last legislative session was only afforded $55 more. That is not enough to take care of the needs, especially with our special education needs, our English language learners, to provide the resources and support that they need. And so why is this happening? We saw what has happened in El Paso ISD. The district has now declared financial exigency, which is in very simple terms, bankruptcy. There was not the oversight that should have been held. to look at our budgets in El Paso ISD, but that is a process didn't happen yesterday. It didn't happen a month ago. This has been going on for at least the last 10, 15 years, the way that budget has been put together to bring us to that point now. And what are the causes? Low enrollment. We're losing enrollment. We're losing a lot of our kids. They're going to private schools. They're going to charter schools. They're being homeschooled. Putting in the vouchers it will have an effect on our students and the enrollment that we have in our classes, and the funding. But when we see a governor in this Texas withhold the money that was allocated by the last legislative session to hold our school districts hostage until he had his voucher program passed, is an injustice to the students in this state. And it is because of that that we are now in the position that we're in right now. What effect has the financial exigency had in El Paso ISD? It's had a devastating effect. We saw over 200 of our employees have their contracts terminated because they had to find a way to cut the 85 million deficit that the district was in. It's had an effect on them personally. I went in with several of our teachers who were in our HR office in tears, fighting for their job because they have families to provide for, they have bills to pay for. And yet a lot of them are brand new teachers, first, second, and third year teachers. Here we are trying to get people into the profession, and this is what we do because of a government, because of a governor and a lieutenant governor that don't want to see public education succeed. The effect that it will have on students, we'll see what that effect is when school starts next week, when our students return. I'm already hearing from teachers that their student loads, their classroom loads are extremely high, simply because we have let go so many teachers, and we're going to have to find some way to put all of our students and have them taken care of. One of the reasons that I think that the district decided to declare the financial exigency is because of what we've seen happening over the state with TEA, the takeover. And I think they did what they did so that the Texas Education Agency would not come in and take over El Paso ISD. Was that the best decision to make? Probably not. Was I happy with the way cuts were made? I was not. But I also understood that something had to be done to save our district and to start moving our district forward. So I'm hoping that, with everything that we see coming forward, that we start seeing some changes through the legislature, because our public schools, our students are the future of this state. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jaime Abetia with the SLETA Teachers Association.
Thank you very much, Representative Perez. It's an honor to be here, especially sitting alongside two of my union sisters. When we talk about education, public education in El Paso, and in Texas, it is unique in the fact that Texas always has a large level of pride. It's almost a cult to be a Texan. You're proud of everything there is to be Texan, from Whataburger to barbecue, except public education. Our leadership in Austin has made a war on public education. We should be proud of the public education that we provide our students, and we were at a time when we had a Democratic governor who understood the importance of fully funding public education. We have now plummeted near the bottom. We've had a race to the bottom when it comes to public education. And we have government entities at the state level that are trying to take over school districts. This is from the same party that said they were the party of small government. This is the same party who Ronald Reagan himself used to have this famous quote about things people would fear hearing people say, and that is, "I'm from the government, I'm here to help." That used to get a big laugh amongst Republicans, and now you have a party that is dead set on taking over as much as they possibly can. And I just find that remarkable that we live in a state like that, which prides itself so much on independence. We have a state that is doing everything they possibly can to whitewash the history that we teach our students. And that's really important for a state where we are now a minority majority state, where we don't hear the contributions of our culture and our people. We hear a whitewashed retelling of what Texas was. We hear people glorify the Texas Revolution. It was about slavery. And somehow we're proud about it. And the financial decisions, and I think that's the takeaway for people here, is that the financial decisions made in Austin reverberate throughout the state. And when you make those cuts, those feel-good, do-nothing cuts that the Texas legislature has done in taxes for people, it leaves local governments holding the bag on how to continue to provide the services with less money. And what does that lead to? That led to financial exigency in EPISD. That led to Isleta having to take out loans to make payroll. What people don't understand, what not enough decision makers in Austin understand, is that when you get rid of teachers, you are impacting quality jobs for your community. That has a financial impact that reverberates throughout the community, because typically your local school districts are some of your largest employers. And then these folks find themselves without jobs. And this becomes a pattern of problems that just end up getting bigger and bigger and bigger and piling up, while the legislature, controlled by the Republicans, pat themselves on the backs and say, look at us, we lowered your taxes. And I do think my final parting words on this is that I think we have to remain vigilant as for those of us that are advocates for labor, those that are advocates for education, because it is our tax dollars that are being misspent in this whole sham of providing public education dollars for private institutions. It should be offensive to everyone. 70% of the people that are taking advantage of that already have their kids in private school. These are people that can already afford it. You are not giving some poor bio kid an opportunity to attend a school he wouldn't be able to. You're subsidizing some rich kid on the west side who already goes to private school. And you're giving them a big fat tax break. And that's inherently unfair, while our own students and our teachers in the classroom have to routinely come out of their pocket for the most basic of needs. We did a raffle recently. We raffled off a box of paper. You would have thought we were giving out gold, because it was a box of copy paper. It is rationed. Teachers can't print in color without permission. That is the financial state that this, I'm sure it's the same as you guys do right now. That is the financial state of your school districts. You guys don't probably hear much about that, but the things that the educators in the classroom have to do because of lack of funding from the state have a major, major impact. It's shameful that it is transpiring, and it is all the more reason why we, as people, need to be more engaged and make sure we're voting at a much higher rate than we have been previously. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Yvonne Salazar with Socorro AFT.
Hi, thank you for the invite to speak. I do serve with our union, Socorro AFT. I am also a teacher currently in the classroom, and it's not a joke. We fight, we beg, anything we can for a box of paper, colored pencils, whatever it is. And this is what is affecting us in the classroom, being able to do and have supplies for these students. Some are able to bring and fund their supplies, others can't. So it comes out of our pocket. How can I let a student sit there without the supplies he needs? Every year, educators across Texas are spending over $286 million out of their pocket so that the kids have what they need to learn the best they can. We will not let them go without the supplies. The lack of funding, taking this money and funding vouchers for private schools, that's taking money out of our children. And like they said, this funding is being used as financial aid for the rich. They were already affording that tuition, already affording the uniforms that they need. And if one of my students went to apply at the private school, what are their chances of actually being accepted? Very slim, very slim. Also, we are kind of coming out of what our fellow districts are going into, struggling to get payment and having to make cuts and let go of teachers, reduce the force. Last year in 25, we had to rift 33 teachers. It was 300 at first, some positions were closed, others were filled. Teachers had to get recertified in other areas. A big majority of a program that was cut was music in the elementary schools. Kids need that break, and where is it falling now? A teacher. The regular classroom teacher now is responsible for teaching music to those elementary students. This is where our lack of funding goes. Once again, the legislation is holding the money hostage. What is he speaking of? He's talking about eliminating property taxes for school funding. Where is that money going to come from? We're going to be struggling even more if we don't get out and vote for somebody who endorses public school. These students are going to be in the community. They're going to be nurses, lawyers. Do they have that capability? We are hindering our public and our future in our community if we are not educated. I tell my kids, education is free, but they're trying to take it away from you. Learn while you can, because not everybody has a free education. And so all I can do is ask you to get out and use your vote and get people who have never voted, those that say, my voice doesn't matter. It does. We need to change it, and we need to get those people to the poll. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Turn it over to Representative Bryant.
Well, I would like to restate my question of a moment ago. I'm curious to know the impact of, if, you know, you probably don't have the detail here, but the impact of this deportation campaign on attendance in the public school system here in El Paso County.
For us, attendance was always really high. We had about 97% attendance in the past. We've dropped to about 93, and it sounds like nothing, but being that we are paid, the school districts are funded by the students sitting in the seats. That is millions of dollars every year we're missing out on. And some of these students are afraid to come to school. Last year, one of the students at my school, they picked her up and her family, and the rest were scared, and they did miss for a little bit and just didn't know what to do and what happens if it happens to us. So yes, the immigration and everything that's going on does affect our attendance.
There's also, in addition to the attendance, there's a culture of fear now in the schools. And I heard something that broke my heart the other day of how the new form of bullying kids is for Anglo kids to tell little brown kids, build that wall. And that is, it's just heartbreaking to hear and see the tears of a kid getting bullied, but it's even worse when it's something like that. And they're hearing it from the highest office in the land.
And what's happened in El Paso ISD is because we have a number of our schools that are right on the border, as all of the issues with ICE and detention started happening, I would start getting calls from a lot of my teachers, especially at Bowie High School and AOA, telling me, you need to help us. He says there's 5 Border Patrol cars sitting in the parking lot. Because we know that those are our schools where our kids walk over from the bridge from Juarez to El Paso and come to school here. And as a result of that, our attendance did drop dramatically because our kids were afraid to come to school. And that's scary. That's scary for a lot of our kids that don't understand what's happening, especially our younger ones that don't understand what's happening. It's disheartening. It's disheartening to us to see that, you know, the children that were coming to school, that were enthusiastic about coming to school, were now staying home and afraid because they were afraid of what was going to happen.
Thank you. We're kind of making a double point here, both with regard to what's going on with regard to immigration, but also with regard to how we fund our schools, because we're one of the only states in America that funds public education on the basis of average daily attendance. Every other state, almost every other state, does the logical thing. They fund public education on the basis of enrollment, because even when an artificial, or rather when some new factor causes attendance to decline, you still have the buildings to pay for. You still have the teachers to pay for. Your expenses don't go down, but in Texas, your income goes down. So I would just raise that up as another effort that the Progressive Caucus has supported, and that is to convert Texas from an average daily attendance system to an enrollment system of financing.
And, you know, just a quick comment, Representative Bryant. I mean, you raise a good point about, you know, what are the numbers in our public schools? And I think the point was raised that there is sort of this culture of fear. Even when I talk to administrators, nobody really wants to talk about that number because they don't want to highlight that number. I do think that there is probably some state data that we can look at, but really how much worse can it get than what I think our families are facing? And so we probably have to quantify that a little bit more so that we're making the case and really talking about the impact of this to our public schools.
Thank you. And John Bryant, I want to thank you so much because he served on public education along with Representative Gina Hinojosa and Representative James Tallarico, who are now running for higher office. And I saw the effort to change the way we are funding our public schools and not to rely on attendance for that very reason. And it was a bipartisan effort that we couldn't get passed. But what does it mean to your community and your school districts when you see a school closure because of funding cuts like this?
Well, in El Paso ISD, we've already had 13 schools closed over the past 2 years, simply because of declining enrollment, simply because of funding. And so they were looking at what needed to be done to do better with the finances that our district had. But the effect that it has had on our kids, those 13 schools that were closed in APISD were all in referring, going back on what my friend over here said about this culture of the white and our Hispanic kids. All of our 13 schools that were closed were either in South El Paso that are all 100% English language learners, Hispanic kids. And the other schools were scattered throughout the district that were all Title I, high Hispanic communities, low income, middle income families. And of course the question was asked is that why those schools? Why some of the other schools were not closed? And as a result of that, our parents' community in South El Paso filed a federal lawsuit of discrimination against EPISD, and they won that lawsuit. And so, this is a history that EPISD has in that discrimination towards our Hispanic students. And we're hoping that things will change because all of our students, regardless of who they are, where they come from, they're our students, and we take care of them in our classroom.
One of the things I think is really interesting about El Paso, if you don't know El Paso, is that we're very tribal about our schools. There's a lot of pride people have, and if two El Pasoans run into each other somewhere else, one of the first questions is always, where'd you go to high school? It's how El Pasoans communicate with one another. So there's a tremendous amount of pride. School closures hurt communities. There's just no way around it. And instead of Independent School District, the way that they did was they combined closures with the expansion of bigger campuses when they did the bond election. So that was very helpful. I want to close with this. I do want to stick up a little bit for our schools. despite our members, despite all of the diversity, we still have some of the best performing schools in the state. Isla High School produces the highest number of Ivy League students in this community, and that is, one of the core grounds parts of this community. So despite that, our members still rise to the challenge every day to make sure that they're providing the highest level of education that they can.
So far in Socorro District, they have not closed any campuses. 2 years there was talk of one. The community came out at that time. It has remained open at this time. But as teachers leave, they're closing those sections. And those students are then, there's not a teacher for them, so they're funneled into the other class, which is increasing the class sizes. Kindergarten's classes, first grade, fourth, third grade, going from 22 kids max up to about 26 now. So they're packing the rooms, and it's putting more work and stress on teachers, and so we need that funding.
Well, thank you very much to all of our panelists for your participation, for your testimony. We appreciate it. Again, it'll be included in the official record for this proceeding, and also to our panelists on immigration at the county. Thank you very much for your participation. So now we're going to transition to the public portion of the hearing. And so we're going to have various panels. I'm going to call up 3 folks at a time, and then I'll give the names of the next panel so they can be ready to go on deck. Again, we're going to stick to the time limits where there's going to be 3 minutes for each individual's testimony. If you can just please respect that time so we can get through everybody. And please, I don't have that fear here that, make sure there's no personal attacks or anything like that. And also, this is a forum of the Legislative Caucus, which is bipartisan, and also, all comments have to, adhere to typically just nonpartisan comments. But we look forward to hearing to everybody's testimony. First panel, number 1, Eduardo Castillo, Lynn Coyle, and Alan Lizarraga. Next on deck. Yes, please. Next on deck, after this, we'll have Carmen Rodriguez, Bobby Franco, and Dr. Kathleen Stout. Okay. And so, yes, please. And so we'll have a timer here that we'll go off, but first, and then also, please, for the record, if you could just clearly state your name, and if you're with an organization, state the organization, please. So first, Mr. Eduardo Castillo.
Good evening, House members, honored panelists, dignitaries. My name is Eduardo Castillo, a retired assistant United States attorney, proud resident of El Paso, and proud graduate of Isleta High School. Thank you for coming to our community. I'm here to voice strong opposition to the proposed immigration detention complex in Socorro and to urge this legislature to establish real oversight over private detention facilities. This proposal is not just about policy, it is about the kind of communities we choose to build. First, the project threatens the well-being of Socorro residents. The community's water system, wastewater capacity, and emergency services are already strained. Local leaders have been clear. A massive detention complex would overwhelm the area and harm the families who live there now. When a federal agency bypasses zoning and environmental reviews, they send a message that residents are secondary. Texas should not allow that. Second, our desert environment cannot sustain a facility of this scale. Our aquifers are fragile, and once damaged, they cannot be restored. Industrial level water use and discharge would place enormous pressure on resources that thousands of households rely on. Rushing construction without transparent environmental assessments risks long-term harm to far east El Paso County, harm future generations will inherit. Third, we must confront the human consequences of expanding private detention. El Paso has already seen failures at large privately operated facilities. At Fort Bliss, reports of medical neglect and unsafe conditions were symptoms of a system that treats human beings as entries on a balance sheet. Socorro should not become another site where vulnerable people are hidden away with minimal oversight. Adding to this, the federal government refuses to share basic information about the proposed site. Based on DHS actions nationwide, we have every reason to believe this facility will be privately operated, and every reason to be concerned. Local residents are committed to opposing this project, but communities across Texas need legislative tools to protect themselves. I urge you to adopt 3 safeguards. 1, local infrastructure protection. Allow cities and counties to enforce zoning and utility regulations on private contractors operating under federal contracts. If a facility threatens local water, wastewater, or emergency services, local governments must have the authority to deny utility hookups or impose development moratoriums. 2, mandatory TCEQ environmental reviews. Require state-level environmental assessments of any non-governmental facility housing more than 500 individuals. 3, state oversight of private detention facilities. Expand the authority of the Texas Commission on Jail Standards to conduct unannounced inspections and limit permits for corporations that fail to meet strict standards. El Paso and Socorro are communities built on hard work, commerce, and human dignity. We are not meant to be a warehouse district for mass confinement. We deserve infrastructure that protects residents, environmental safeguards that protect our future, and policies that reflect our values. I urge the committee to adopt these safeguards to protect Texas families, Texas land, and basic human rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Next, we have Ms. Lynn Coyle. If you could introduce yourself and your organization.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Coyle. I am a semi-retired civil litigator, and I work with Together for Border Dignity, which is a local coalition that includes nonprofits, direct service providers, other agitators, organizers, elected officials. We have a big umbrella. So I want to talk about a crisis in El Paso, and it is ICE created, very much like the crisis in Houston with the ICE killing of Mr. Salgado Araujo. We share ICE abuse in El Paso, but it's not happening as clearly for us on the street. It's happening in our detention center. We are in El Paso, the capital of the country in the number of people we detained, migrants we detain. We detain more immigrants than any other city in the country. 1 in 4 ICE arrests happen in Texas. The United States detains more migrants than any other country in the world. In Camp East, Montana, the facility at Fort Bliss detains more people than any other facility in the United States. So what is the crisis? The crisis is human suffering. We had 3 deaths in 42 days, including, as Representative Perez, who I want to thank for convening this group, and I want to thank all of you for coming. I should have said that from the very beginning. It's truly an honor to have you here. Mr. Lunas Campos was deprived of his asthma medication while he was detained. He was begging for it. He was denied that medication. For his complaints, he was placed unlawfully against all detention standards in segregation. He begged some more for his medication. And when he insisted, he said, look, please just get me my medication and I swear I'll stop harassing and yelling. They went in and they beat him and they asphyxiated him and they killed him. And so we have our ICE deaths here, but we don't see them because they're behind closed doors. I know I don't have a lot of time, but there's a profound lack of medical care at the facility. People are not given their insulin if they're diabetic. They are not given their high blood pressure medication if they suffer from high blood pressure. And yes, Representative Morales, I think you used the term a money-making scam, which it is. This is over $1 billion contract with a private entity that had no prior detention experience at all. Just between August of last year when it opened, in January of 2026, we had 130 calls to 911. 6 of them were people contemplating suicide. Our county medical examiner, thankfully, as Representative Perez mentioned, was able to conduct an autopsy of Mr. Luna Campos and determined it was a homicide. But soon after his death, another detainee died. And the message was that it was a suicide. but rather than, again, our county medical examiner exercising their authority, Fort Bliss did that. So very quickly, if I can indulge 25 more seconds, what are we asking you to do? What you're already doing. You're here, you're listening. Deeply grateful for all of that. We've got incredible leadership. I want to thank our local leadership, not on the school issue, but thank you guys for rocking it on that front. What can we do? Can we find a way to work together and think creatively and not just throw our hands up and say, well, it's Fort Bliss, it's the feds, it's ICE, what can the state do? Can we get state health inspectors into that facility? Can we get a law that requires our local medical examiner to, at a minimum, participate in every single custodial death? At least we know we have some sort of local oversight. Can we get our district attorney's offices empowered, regardless of whether it's on federal land? If that is a privately run facility, they can investigate every custodial death or excessive use of force. Can we get our local electeds in those facilities at unannounced visits so they can educate themselves and educate our community? Finally, my fifth ask, can we brainstorm together? We are in it together. We're not asking for the cavalry to come in and the state to somehow rescue us. I'm a lawyer. I understand the barriers. But is there a way? We know the problems. We know the human suffering. You guys know the apparatus of state law. Can we somehow come together and figure out what levers of state law, state power can be exercised to shine light and make some of this human suffering so much less? Thank you.
Next, we have Alan Lizarraga. If you could introduce yourself and your organization, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for hosting this and for having us speak here. My name is Alan Lizarraga. I am part of the Border Network for Human Rights. We're a nonprofit organization based here in El Paso. Our work is to educate our families on their human and constitutional rights and organize them to create meaningful change in our community. As Representative Morales said, we've been watching what's happening in the state of Texas for quite some time. We understood very early that what they were doing was not just to support in this mass deportation agenda, but to create its own system to do it. So today I'm going to talk more about the Texas role in immigration. For many of us that work here, that live here, that we've been raising our families, we have grown tired of asking ourselves one question. And the question is, when will it be enough? Was it enough when the state of Texas spent more than $11 billion in Operation Lone Star, filling our community with military vehicles, concertina wire, and armed soldiers, instead of investing in our schools, in our hospitals, and in our neighborhoods? Was it enough when our border communities became the testing ground for policies that undermined due process, separated families, and made our neighborhoods afraid to call the police or report crimes? Was it enough when the legislature passed SB 8, forcing county sheriffs into mandatory 287G agreements and turning local law enforcement into an extension of the federal deportation machine? And was it enough when the courts lifted the injunction on SB 4, allowing it to take effect? Was that enough? For years, we have warned that Texas was building a state-led deportation system, one policy at a time. Operation Lone Star militarized our communities. SBA forced local law enforcement to participate in federal immigration enforcement. And today, with SB 4 in effect, this system has expanded even further, raising profound constitutional concerns and eroding the trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. We are a law enforcement community. As an organization, we have always recognized law enforcement as part of the solution. But when families fear that a traffic stop, a trip to the grocery store, a call to 911 could place a loved one at risk, everyone is less safe. Victims hesitate to report crimes, witnesses stop coming forward, and public safety cannot exist without community trust. So today we respectfully ask you that in this upcoming legislature, that you repeal SB 4, that you restore the local discretion by repealing the mandatory 287G provisions of SB 8, and that you bring meaningful transparency and accountability to Operation Lone Star. This can be done through independent oversight, to public reporting. You should also mandate constitutional policing training and regular legislative review. Border communities have carried the weight of these policies for years. We have lived with the checkpoints, the reservoir, the military presence, and the fear. Instead of feeling hate and fear, it is time to work on behalf of all Texan communities and guarantee that our rights are respected and protected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll turn it to our representatives if they have any questions or observations.
Well, first of all, I agree with everything you all said, and I really appreciate the suggestions. As Representative Perez mentioned, we are taking notes of today, and these are policies that we would like to push forward next legislative session. And personally, I am working on our campaign committee to make sure that we flip the House and we have people who are actually listening to this. And I encourage you to reach out to our colleagues across the aisle and also let them know in whatever way you can what your requests are. But just today, I spoke to some constituents and they were concerned about water. And you mentioned, you know, one of the persons who was being detained and how he couldn't get his asthma medication, but they were asking me about water. That's what they're hearing in the news all the way in Houston, Texas. So my question to you is, do people have access to clean water? And if not, is there something that we can do about it? Like individuals who want to like donate or something like that.
Yeah, Representative, if you're talking about specifically at Camp East, Montana, my understanding is, you know, it's interesting because, again, we have a lack of transparency, hence the FOIA litigation by the county. But I understand they're trucking water in to the facility in large quantities. And that's through a private contractor. And I'm assuming that's coming from our aquifer, our, you know, PSB territory. But the quality of it, I have not specifically heard complaints, but I can certainly talk with Texas ACLU, and Texas Civil Rights Project has actually filed a lawsuit challenging the conditions of confinement. Very well documented, you know, over 30 more affidavits from detainees. Certainly there have been unsanitary conditions in terms of access to bathrooms, showers, clean clothes. People have been processed into the facility and required to wear the same clothes for 3 weeks or a month. And there's been issues with that. But the actual quality of the drinking water, I'm not familiar with complaints about that.
Okay, and then just one follow-up.
Sure.
Do they have to pay for the drinking water at all? Do you know?
I have not heard them being required to pay for drinking water. Yeah.
Well, thank you to our panelists. I mean, this is, you know, people often say immigration is a federal issue, but I think our panelists did a great job of actually highlighting all of the state nexus related to that too. So thank you. And just to your point of water, they do truck in water. They don't have a pipeline of water there. Just when you look at the standards of what's used for these industries, you should be using 100 gallons per person per day. If you have 5,000 people a day, that should be 500,000 gallons. Are they realistically trucking 500,000 gallons, or are they just not providing sanitary conditions? I think it's the latter. But thank you to our panelists for your testimony.
Yeah. I'm going to follow up on your question. Okay, I'm going to follow up on your question and talk with folks that are regularly in the facility to see, because I could certainly, that could be going on, and I simply did not know that. Okay. Okay, we will find out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Carmen Rodriguez, Bobby Franco, and Dr. Kathleen Stout. And then next on deck, we'll have Saul Gonzalez, Fred Borrego, and Veronica Carvajal. Ms. Carmen Rodriguez, welcome. Thank you for being here. If you could please introduce yourself and your organization.
Yes. My name is Carmen Rodriguez. I'm a volunteer community advocate with Community First Coalition here in El Paso.
Oh, hold the microphone. There you go.
Yes. Okay.
Just also for those who-
The issues that you're addressing today are so important, and we care very deeply about them. I am going to speak of another issue. because homes are important. And I'm sure that all of us are looking forward to going home, leaving the world's problems behind us, and being comfortable and cool, hopefully, in our homes. In cities with high percentages of low-income residents like El Paso, especially along the border, hundreds of thousands of families suffer from overcrowding, frequent rent increases, evictions, and unsafe and unhealthy apartment conditions. Tenants are left to enforce standards on their own, often without success. Tenant rights need to be supported and enhanced, not weakened or reduced. One way to emphasize standards of habitability is to require property owners to provide their tenants with copies of habitability standards in plain English and Spanish and other languages if necessary, so that everyone will be clearly aware of what apartment conditions should be like. My second point is disparities across Texas. Larger cities with bigger municipal budgets have implemented emergency financial assistance programs for extremely low-income renters. Short-term loans and grants are being made available to prevent evictions and to address emergency living conditions. Further, larger cities are taking advantage of increased construction opportunities brought about by recent legislation through SB 840. For other cities and rural areas, the main obstacle is still lack of investment capital. We suggest using needs assessments to identify the areas of most need and opening up opportunities in the form of incentives, loans, and grants to support progressive strategies for housing across the state, for affordable housing. Point 3, preventing displacement in older neighborhoods. Texas has a rich historical and cultural heritage which should be preserved. However, preservation is not only about old buildings. It is about the social and cultural milieu which has existed in our state for centuries. Barrios and older residential areas should be treasured and restored. Thus, we implore that whenever feasible, residential units and buildings in older neighborhoods be rehabilitated and restored so that longtime residents can continue to live in their beloved neighborhoods. And my final point, increasing home ownership among all Texans. We urge support for the creation of community land trusts to open opportunities for renters to transition into home ownership. Technical assistance to local nonprofits to establish and operate such land trusts is very much needed, as well as seed money and financing assistance. The state should establish an assistance fund for areas with little resources and where community land trusts would be of great benefit to the residents of the region. Again, thank you for coming to El Paso. Welcome, and good luck with the Progressive Caucus. I hope you double in size next November.
Bobby Franco, you could introduce yourself and your organization.
Good evening, Bobby Franco. I work with Project Vida. I was Director of Economic Development for the city of El Paso for 10 years here. I went over to the city of Phoenix and I served there for 15 and a half years as their director. But most importantly, we started a program called New Market Tax Credits. And we developed the redevelopment of downtown Phoenix and other low-income communities. The reason I bring that up is because I'm here in El Paso and I'm working with Carmen, I'm working with Project Vida as a consultant. And our challenge is really to bring affordable housing plus apartments to the area. And we work with the poorest of the poorest. Our rents are subsidized through the HUD rates that we charge, but they aren't sufficient enough for the demand that we have. And the reason we have so much demand is because the poverty in El Paso is more like close to 30%. People cannot afford to buy houses. But there is a way to work through that process, how we can be able to educate people so they can qualify for first-time buyers assistance programs, and they can be able to qualify for houses. Right now, I'm working with a group out of Las Cruces, New Mexico, Tierra del Sol, and I'm helping them develop 110 single-family homes that they already pre-sold to low-income farm workers in that area through the program that they have. And one layer that we've already worked with, and we've been very successful, is we're introducing new market tax credits, not low-income housing tax credits, but new market tax credits to reduce the mortgage. So if the house is selling for $240,000, with a new market tax credit, we're going to be able to subsidize it from $30,000 to $40,000 less. So when they come into that house, they're going to be able to already have equity. We can do that here in El Paso. The developer that is over there in Las Cruces wants to come to El Paso. We've identified a property in the county and Commissioner Holguin's district, about 10 acres that we could work with, but we need infrastructure, we need cooperation. We also need land that has favorable terms and infrastructure. We need grants. We need low interest rate loans. What I do is find low interest rate loans with credit unions and then subsidizing with the Presbyterian church that I work with, Project Vida, and we're able to bring those single family houses, buy them, by foreclosures. We recently bought 4 in the Northeast. We redeveloped them and we're renting it or selling out to low-income people. We need more of that. We're probably the only nonprofit that is doing that here in El Paso. You have your big developers that are doing low-income housing tax credits for reasons to make money and to provide housing for low-income people, but those low-income housing tax credit programs are very few and in between. We want to be able to develop a program that closes the gap, provides first-time home buyers an opportunity to buy homes, and they can build wealth. And I'm sure we can do that here in El Paso if you allow us. The state can be very helpful in helping us develop that, as the county as well. We're working with your county, Zulema Avila, the executive director, and we're putting a lot of great creative programs that she mentioned, she being Carmen mentioned in her presentation, and that we want to be able to get these programs off the ground because they can mean a lot to the county and to the city. So that's basically what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Franco. Dr. Kathleen Stout, if you could introduce yourself and your organization.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Stout. I am a retired political science professor who taught for 40 years. And forgive me for bringing props because I'm a teacher in my heart and soul. I work with a variety of community organizations. I consider myself now, since 2017, a community activist. Many of the people in this room were at that event at the county with 200 people, 7 hours. I value very much the solidarity that we provided in our collective desire to avoid being the immigration detention capital of the United States. We don't want that. We didn't want an 8,500 person warehouse facility with probable cages inside to house immigrants. So I wanted to tell you about our journey as community activists, many of them from Indivisible, the 915, our journey in contacting many officials at the local level. And we're so fortunate here because we have representatives who listen to us and who respond to us. And that has been our experience. We went to the county commissioner's court a number of times, even in 2025, to get human rights resolutions. But the big meeting allowed us to move forward even more. We are so proud of our county attorney and the quality of the lawsuit that has been filed. The city of Socorro was also involved and passed an ordinance. They do not want these immigration detention facilities within their city limits. There were several people in this room who went to the Public Service Board, the PSB, and that's not an elected board. It has appointed members, and they did the usual thing that boards often do, and that is we need to study the issue. They deal with water, so they asked the Lower Valley Water District to come up with some projections and forecasts of future water needs. Okay, I still have 30 seconds according to my clock. I wanted to say also that the projected estimates for water needed came to the amounts of 850,000 to 1.6 million gallons per day if that facility had been set up, and it may be downgraded with fewer people and a so-called training facility. Also the County Emergency Services District, I didn't even realize they existed, but I, like many other people, wrote emails to these people because they're in charge of determining whether or not we have adequate emergency services. Do we have enough fire department support? Do we have water pressure available, not only for these facilities, but also for the residents who live there? And will the residents be able to get their dialysis done? Will clinics be affected by low water pressure? There are a lot of these concerns. And of course, our Congressional Representative Veronica Escobar has always been able to contact agency heads and people in Washington, D.C. about our concerns. So to sum up and come to some conclusions here, I support the recommendations made in the first panel. And I want to stress to you that we have done our work as volunteer activists in this community with a responsive set of local government officials. We ask, what will you do? What can you do? And what will you do? Please. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. I do want to take this opportunity to mention that Representative Morales and Representative Bryant signed a letter that was sent to the Public Service Board on the water issue that ultimately made its way to the Lower Valley Water District. So I just want to appreciate them for being active in that issue. I just want to thank our panelists as well for talking about affordable housing and for adding another dimension to this hearing. Representative, if you have any.
I'm a politician, I love to talk. I just want to say regarding the affordable housing, and we hear you, and thank you for your prop. I took a picture of it. I still live in the neighborhood where I grew up, Segundo Barrio, and I've watched it gentrify, and it breaks my heart that we try to build these affordable housing apartments that are just far out of the way and not near the community, where we could have invested and helped rebuild those homes or just fix the roof on them. And it frustrates me that we give huge tax breaks to trillionaires like Elon Musk. I don't think he's a trillionaire anymore from last I saw, but we let him get all these tax breaks in the state of Texas when we could be helping people in our community who pay their taxes stay in the communities that they deserve and want to stay in. Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Saul Gonzalez, Fred Borrego, and Veronica Sandoval. And then after that, we will have Deanne Croucher, Brooke Nanke, and Charlotte Weiss. Ms. Croucher, if you could introduce your service.
He said they wanted me to go first.
Saul Gonzalez. Saul Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, Saul Gonzalez. I'm here on my own capacity. First of all, I want to say welcome to El Paso. I'm here to talk about data centers. I'm going to start by saying we need a statewide ban on data centers. Data centers are a bipartisan issue. I'm not exaggerating when I say it's an issue that's on the ballot. And the action or inaction on data centers will result on the victory or the loss on the upcoming election. And if you want an example, what happened here in El Paso during the primaries. So for context, El Paso, back in 2023, El Paso approved an AI data center for Meta. In October 2025, Doña Ana County approved a data center. And this year we learned about the proposed data center in Fort Bliss. So we have 3 data centers in our region. I said we need a statewide ban on data centers. Let's talk about, I'm gonna just be focusing on the Meta data center. There's this narrative that data centers bring economic development. They don't. They don't bring a lot of jobs. We're giving them tax breaks. The city and the county give them 80% tax abatements. And in return, Meta is obligated to provide 50 full-time jobs. As you're doing these hearings throughout the communities, I see that you use for El Paso da nopal in la lotería, referring it to, because this is a desert. And the water consumption for these data centers, we don't have the water. Meta will use up to 2.5 million gallons of water directly. And this is not talking like indirectly for their electricity. So when it comes to data centers, I will also suggest we need our utility companies to have more power to deny service to data centers. Right now, this is an issue because the CEO of El Paso Water is saying he cannot do anything because he's obligated to provide service. When we talk about the energy, we heard from Donald Trump saying the Ratepayer Protection Pledge, it's a pledge, it's not legally binding. And we need to pass something in the state that protects communities by forcing data centers to pay for all the infrastructure and their costs. We have seen more power plants behind the meter. We cannot continue to allow that. There's a lot of issues, how close they are to residents, the NDAs, the transparency issues, a lot of things. But as we're talking about immigration, I think we need to fight detention centers and data centers with the same power and energy because these two issues are interconnected. We know that ICE is using AI to do surveillance on us, to do face recognitions. So if we care about immigration, we're gonna also care about AI. Also, we need to give counties more power to fight these data centers through zonings, through a lot of different things. But until we figure it out, how to deal with the heat, how to deal with the zoning, with the tax incentives, and all of this, we need a ban on data centers. So I hope you can help El Paso. Just know that if you propose this, El Paso will be with you, and we're gonna be supporting this. Thank you so much.
Next up is Mr. Franco.
Hi, everybody. I'm Fred Borrego. I represent the San Juan Neighborhood Association, but also Central El Paso. I attended Jefferson High School for 2 years, but graduated from Burgess due to the Alvarado versus EPISD discrimination lawsuit back in the 70s. Okay, I want to talk about vocational education, the trades, which is not existent here in El Paso, which is not existent in the state of Texas. And small shops like mine and many others of manufacturers are suffering. We just don't have them. Community colleges, which is not funded, they don't have them. We don't have them here. The city of El Paso is looking into this aerospace manufacturing, but they want to do it from the top down. And I've told the mayor and I've told several representatives, it's got to be from the bottom up. If we don't have the students and the workers coming up, it's not going to work. Okay, so what happens? We're all suffering. And a friend of mine told me that what we could do through NAFTA is import workers. I'm glad to say that I have 2 great ingenieros imported, but it's sad that I couldn't find them here in El Paso or in the United States. Mexico, Juarez, and their tecnológicos are eating our lunch. We're not putting the people on. They are. Many businesses like mine and manufacturers are importing workers because there's none. See what you can do about it. The other thing I want to talk about is the TCEQ and the refinery. I thought the TCEQ was an agency to protect us, the citizens. Obviously, with what I've seen in the past 10, 15 years, they're there for the refineries. We have a case for a contested case, the first one ever in El Paso. What does the refinery do? They go and hire these big shot lawyers, law firms, and now they're going to have another hearing for that. And hopefully we still get our contested case, but maybe it won't happen. My biggest concern is anybody could see that the TCEQ should have monitors around the refinery, at least 4, around their fence line, especially when they omit benzene. And then these other poisons that the names are so large I can't even pronounce them, okay? But they don't. They only have one. They only have one, which is a quarter mile away at the corner of Clark and Cleveland. So I would ask that maybe the state could help us and put some monitors, fence light monitors on the refineries, because the law says that the refinery self-report, self-monitor. What's wrong with that picture? I mean, self-monitoring, and yet they're poisoning us 24/7. And the way they get around it, and people look the other way, is they give bags of peanuts to certain organizations, certain schools, certain politicians. They look the other way. That needs to stop. Thank you.
Yes, Veronica Carvajal, here in my personal capacity. Thank you for being here. AI hyperscale data centers, like ICE detention centers, are not compatible with El Pasoans' values or our scarce and precious and expensive water needs. A year ago, Governor Abbott said that Texas would be the epicenter of AI data centers. A few days ago, the same governor said that AI data centers should be banned in rural communities. I am asking that you join the fast-growing number of local, state, and federal leaders calling for a ban on AI data centers. Not regulations, not a moratorium, but a full-out ban. This ban would apply to data centers already in operation, those under construction like Meta, and those under contract like the Fort Bliss AI data center. As you know, the majority of our legislators did nothing to stop dozens and dozens of hospitals from shutting down, or from stopping, did nothing to stop hundreds and hundreds of public schools from being shut down, just like we saw in El Paso. The state can certainly handle shutting down AI data centers, which, unlike hospitals and schools, are not necessary. Despite us not needing AI data centers, our local, state, and federal governments have been waiving the AI industry's taxes. While we, the residents, subsidize their water usage and infrastructure, both at the site and at the power plants, while we pay higher utility rates in order to pay for those expenses, these data centers bring more pollution, hotter temperatures, unknown health effects from both not just the data centers themselves, but from the energy sources and the transmission lines, including electromagnetic fields. And all for what? AI produces less jobs than are created by a single school, typically. All for a product, artificial intelligence, that's replacing workers, hurting our children, surveilling us, and leading to the deportation of our people. We don't want AI data centers in anyone's backyards. Not in our city, not in our county, not at our military bases, not in our tribal lands, not in our state, not in our country, and certainly not in our neighboring country of Mexico either. It has been incredibly, I've been involved with environmental issues for about 30 years, and this is the first time I've seen people from across our state. This issue has crossed all sorts of demographics, all sort of political identities. We cannot afford AI data centers. And this is really an issue about the labor unions and about the industry getting behind candidates and getting behind elected officials at the despair of communities that are now clamoring for a stop because we did not get a say in the process. And so this is why the House of Representatives had a hearing in June, why the state Senate is listening to communities about this very issue. So we ask that you have the courage to say no to an industry that will set us back 40, 50 years to all of the environmental progress that we have tried to make at a huge sacrifice. Locally, we have saved water for over 35 years, and I can tell you that I did not do all of the things that I did to save water for the likes of some of these tech bros. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I actually do have a question on this because I do think it's important. And Ms. Carvajal, I don't know if you could speak to it, but there's often this misconception that with these tax incentives that were given to these AI companies, that our school districts are the biggest beneficiaries, but that's not entirely true because of recapture. I don't know if you could speak to that, or if anyone on the panel can.
Well, yes, and I think State Rep, you probably know more than we do about the recapture limits. But in addition to that, there is the state gave $1 billion in sales tax incentives to the AI industry in 2025 alone. So that is money that could have also gone to our schools. And so any way we cut it, right, the water rates that are going up, the electricity rates that are going up, the schools are not exempt from those. They're going to be paying, they are already paying more for just to keep the lights on and the water running at the schools. And so when we really start to pull on the web of the AI industry, everyone is being impacted and everyone is paying for them except for the industry itself. The industry is going to burst. It is only able to survive because of the subsidies that have come at the great expense of our students, of our teachers, of our immigrants, of our entire communities, especially rural communities that don't have hospitals, but now have a data center next to them that's heating up their community, as well as taking up their precious well water, for instance. So thank you for bringing that up. But I think that a lot more has to be, the lack of transparency has also kept us from really understanding the financial and environmental impact of these AI data centers.
Thank you. Well, this data center in particular is in the Ysleta School District, and it's a $10 billion facility. And there's the thought that, well, the school district didn't give any incentives, so it's going to reap all that tax benefit. But because, as Representative Bryant well knows, because of recapture, and whenever the school district experiences a large increase in change in property value, they have to give a lot of that back to the state. So in this case, the Ysleta district isn't going to see, I think, the benefit that a lot of representatives think that it will.
Thank you. I'd like to ask this gentleman about vocational education you were speaking about a moment ago. What type of vocational education were you saying we're not providing in the school system that we need to be providing?
Okay, I'm in the machine shop, CNC business, and that's computer programmers. We just can't find them anywhere. There's no schools for that. The other one is the electrical trades. Okay, that used to be a public service. But now if you want to be a welder, if you want to be an electrician, then you pay for that through our schools that you're supposed to pay for. And a lot of them happened, I remember back then when they would close some industries and they said, okay, we'll help you pay to get another trade or to learn something else. Well, these schools were built on that and they captured all that money. And a lot of times they don't produce the type of worker that is required.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much to our panelists.
I want to follow up on the vocational school issue. I think that it's really important. We have somewhat of a vocational school in EPISD. It's our career college technology. But I think it's important that if we're going to build up the workforce in our country and prepare our students, we have students that really do not want to go to college. That's not their calling, but they like to work on cars. They like to do other kinds of things. And I think we have done a disservice to our workforce and to our students by trying to force them to go one particular route and not really allow them to take advantage of where it is that they really want to do. And we're seeing the effect of that with your businesses that are not finding, we're not graduating students that have that ability to carry on those trades, to be the plumbers, to be the electricians, of which we desperately need. And so hopefully, as we try to change how our public schools are funded and what we offer in our public schools, that vocational schools and the trades become an active part of what we provide for our students to do exactly that, so that we don't have to go to foreign countries to bring in people to do the work that a lot of our kids can do.
If I may add that to that a little bit, in my business for the last 36 years, and the last 25 years, we always got people from CCTE, El Paso Tech. and we developed them. Some of them became engineers, some of them became machinists, some of them became business owners. But in the last 10 to 15 years, it stopped. Zero.
I just want to make some comments about organized labor because there's something that was said that I think needs to be addressed. Being a union person myself, second generation union organizer at that. There is no bigger opponent to corporate America than organized labor. Organized labor is the biggest opponent to corporations. That's why they spend so much money to try to defeat them. That's why they spend so much money, why Starbucks is so anti-union, why Amazon is so anti-union. These individuals that you enumerated are members of this community as well. We are not stakeholders at this conversation. What the function organized labor does do in that industry is make sure that those workers have proper working conditions, make sure that they're receiving a fair wage for what they do. That is a benefit to everyone in this community. It is because of organized labor that we have the weekend, that workers have compensation for retirement, that workers have safety regulations. It is the voice of organized labor that has dragged corporations kicking and screaming into providing what they should be providing to every single worker out there.
Thank you very, very much to our panelists. It was a lively conversation, great questions with our panels. We appreciate it. So next up, we have Deanne Croucher, Brooke Mankey, and Charlotte Weiss. And then after that, next on deck, we have our final speaker, Chelsea Holden. Start with Deanne Croucher. If you could introduce yourself and your organization.
My name's Deanne Croucher, and I am a proud founding member of Indivisible, the 915. But I have also recently joined the League of Women Voters, powered by people. And we're all partnering together, as you all have said here, to get people to vote. I'm here representing two members of my family. I'm very torn about whether to talk about public education or the detention center because they're both very dear to my heart. I worked as an observer in immigration court, and I saw some horrible things happening where families were torn apart, dads were taken, children were crying, and I even worked with a Venezuelan family whose husband was taken. And so I saw it firsthand, and it was horrible. And yes, the water is terrible at Camp East Montana. I know because the Venezuelan man was forced to buy his own water, and we watched trucks go in every day, taking a horrible, and even the people who work there don't have good water, because I talked to the guards and the people at the Border Patrol station. So it's a problem. But I'm here to talk for my daughter, who's a fourth grade teacher at Haskins. It was one of the schools that was combined, 3 schools into one, when they started closing schools. And my daughter-in-law, who's a special ed diagnostician, both of whom I asked to come tonight because it would be better if they were here speaking on their own, but they couldn't because they were working in 85-degree buildings and they're exhausted.
I hope they're union members.
Yes. Anyway, yes, well, I will make sure that happens. Thank you very much. Anyway, they asked me to bring up a few things. One is the cuts to special ed diagnosticians. They lost 20 people in special ed so we have one diag working at Haskins School for 1,400 students. To meet federal standards, they have 45 days to assess these kids. And we're not talking we're not talking kids with mental problems, but we're talking people on the spectrum. We're talking people with hearing problems, vision problems. One diag for 1,400 students on a campus. Also, they raised the minimum classroom from 24 kids to 28 kids. 28 kids, 4 years old, 3 years old. Do you ever handle 3 4-year-olds? Okay, but 24, 28, it's ridiculous. And why is El Paso, when we've declared bankruptcy, basically writing hot checks for stuff, why are no cuts to the admins? Only teachers, special ed diag. Why is that not happening? Why are we not getting rid of these? We have the highest paid superintendent in the state of Texas, in El Paso, not Houston, not Dallas, not San Antonio, El Paso. That's ridiculous. And the basic allotment hasn't gone up per student in 11 years. So those are and also the voucher thing too. If they're taking money from our public schools. I was a public school student. I got the best education at Burgess High School. My English teacher was fantastic. I skipped the first 2 years of English at UTEP. I was an English major because I had such a great education. Raised 3 kids in public schools. I have 5 grandkids in public schools, and they're getting a great education, largely to the devotion of the teachers who really care. So that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Crouch, for your testimony. Next up, we have Brooke Mankey. If you could introduce yourself and your organization, please.
Good evening. My name is Brooklyn Semenki, and I'm proudly representing El Paso Young Democrats as their History Department Secretary. Representative Morales, Perez, and Bryant, I want to talk about something very important, also our public education system, specifically our budget. As proudly a rising high school senior, I've seen that this is a concern for years for students, parents, and faculty, and I know that this has been a concern for you. When I heard one of my teachers talk about the massive debt that EPISD is in, I knew that I had to be loud about it. And I'm glad that I'm here to speak up not only for my education, but that the education that Texas deserves. Currently, we are 43rd in public education funding. Unfortunately, while we worry about vouchers and implementing ridiculous and expensive projects into schools, such as an online bathroom pass, teachers are losing jobs and children are losing their much privileged education. I want to talk about the vouchers first because I feel like this is the biggest factor driving our problem. I'm going to be saying many numbers, but they're relevant to my case. Right now, 25% of the vouchers have already been released. That is around $2,500. The entire voucher is $10,000. Apparently, $30,000 were given to students with disabilities. However, less than 25 out of 28,700 students with special needs got those $30,000. Keep this in mind. The average money of expenses for private schools is around $14,000. For disabled students, it's $15,000, but it can go up to $40,000 per year. The average tuition of a private school is $13,000 per year. These vouchers can't even cover the full tuition of a private school, so why the hell are we even implementing them? Student aid on average is $6,890, which is 31% less than the vouchers being given out to students across the state. Per student funding in Texas is $15,000 per year, which is only 33% more than the vouchers. What's worse about this situation is $1 billion of constituents' taxes are going to these vouchers, and it is projected that $7.9 billion will be going into the program in the fiscal year of 2030 to 31. This billion-dollar project could have easily been used for public schools. Instead, it is being drawn out, leaving public school districts in drastic amounts of debt, cutting educational programs for children, and leaving staff without jobs. Let me remind you of what private schools do not have that public schools do have. Special needs accommodations, state mandate standards for curriculums, teaching certification requirements, and in my opinion, the most important, diversity. Because of these vouchers, Texas public schools are projected to lose $250 million in the first year alone. What's worse about this problem is that public school districts across the state, including El Paso, are in $1 million in debt. Unfortunately, our district had to take a vote recently on whether to make families starve, take educational programs away from students, or force kids to come to school. Across Texas, other districts are making these hard decisions as well, with budget cuts and similar choices. This affects our children's future, staff and families, and our communities. Let me give you guys an example. In El Paso, the debt is leading to educational programs such as AP courses being cut and being replaced with on-ramped courses. While I'm not against these courses, I have taken them myself, they only transfer college credit to Texas colleges and universities, complicating it for students who want to go out of state. Either forces them to stay in Texas or look elsewhere for money, making it harder for students to pursue the education they want. It's not just educational programs that are being cut, but 200 staff members across EPISD were voted to be laid off. That is 200 people, households, and families that will lose a much needed income. Our students can no longer pay for students to go to state competition and instead force teachers and students to take money out of their own pockets to pay for these competitions. Last year in Socorro ISD, almost voted to take off the fine arts program, a safe space and place of opportunities for hundreds of kids. Superintendents across Texas are paid up to $600,000, almost 10 times the average teacher salary in Texas. I suppose they are paid that money to make the best decisions for our schools and kids, yet they fearmonger with attendance, they lay off faculty and leave families without the income they relied on, and they add a non-functional $1 million online bathroom pass rather than providing children with the resources they need to succeed in school. Before I finish, let me give you some ideas on what you guys can do to make this better. Idea number 1, continue to push against the vouchers and pass legislation favoring public schools. Idea number 2, hold districts accountable for the way that they've been handling their debt. And lastly, idea number 3, pass legislation making salary caps for superintendents and direct that money towards our teachers. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey, for your testimony. And next, Charlotte Weiss, if you could introduce yourself and your organization, please.
My name is Charlotte Weiss. I'm a proud staff attorney at Texas Civil Rights Project in El Paso. For the last 8 months, I have gone weekly to Camp East, Montana to speak to individuals about the abuses that they are facing day after day. These interviews have lent themselves to declarations, which have then become litigation. And I, at Texas Civil Rights Project, along with ACLU National, ACLU of Texas, and Farella, are now litigating and suing the federal government because the conditions of confinement at Camp East, Montana are against the US Constitution and against US federal law. I'm here today to tell you about Camp East, Montana, and more importantly, why Socorro Warehouse Facility cannot exist. Because Camp East, Montana is a crystal ball into what Socorro will look like. In December of 2025, Francisco Gaspar Cristobal Andres died. He was a Guatemalan national who lived in Florida with his wife, Lucia. They co-owned a landscaping company. They had several children. Francisco was the first individual who died at Camp East, Montana, and he died at Providence Hospital in El Paso. His wife, Lucia, says that by the time he got to the hospital, it was too late. Because Camp East, Montana did not provide him the medical care that he needed, there was nothing the hospital could do to make him live. Lucia is now a widow and lives in Guatemala apart from her husband and the rest of her family. Their daughter lives in the United States and now has neither parent in the country, one who is lost because of deportation and one who is lost because of death. There are thousands of Franciscos in Camp East, Montana, thousands of individuals who are not receiving the life-saving care that they need, thousands of individuals who have been separated from their children, who live in the United States and attend our public schools, and thousands of individuals who come to Camp East, Montana, healthy and alive, and come out sick or dead. When we look at the conditions that individuals like Francisco have faced, we're looking at a tent camp that was initially touted by the Trump administration as a place where individuals would only spend a few days before they were deported to their home countries. The reality is that individuals are spending months in tents where dust comes in day after day during the wind and dust storms in El Paso, a place where individuals are given spoiled food the size of a fist, and a place where when individuals complain about the food and about the lack of soap at Camp East Montana, they are met with fights, excessive force from the individuals and the guards at Camp East Montana, and put in solitary confinement. We know what a proposed Socorro warehouse facility looks like because we already have Camp East Montana as our evidence. And so I ask you to do everything you can to stop this warehouse facility from going up. If you stop Socorro, you stop individuals like Francisco from losing his life and from his family from losing their loved ones. If you stop Socorro, you ensure that individuals receive the life-saving medical care they need in their own communities. If you stop Socorro, you ensure that families stay together. I ask you for your policy to continue to have oversight over Camp East Montana in the form of encouraging DA investigations and ensuring that the El Paso County Medical Examiner's Office conducts every single autopsy. I ask you for Socorro to continue to do all that you can to extend the moratorium and stop this proposed warehouse facility from going up, and to continue to fight for water for our community. Thank you for all that you have done, and thank you for all that you will continue to do to both protect those in Fort Bliss and prevent another human and civil rights disaster in Socorro.
Representative Bryant?
I'd just like to thank you for your courage and selflessness in sticking with this crusade in which it is more and more, I never thought I would say this about our country, a risk even to confront ICE and confront this administration on this topic. So thank you very much for doing that. With regard to our two panelists, speaking of public education, I'd like to thank you as well for giving a very strong statement. And I'd just like to give you a couple of facts to take with you to help your case as you make it in the community. One would think that if we're going to operate a good school system, we would fund it adequately. When I returned to the legislature in the 2023 session, I was on the Appropriations Committee, and I thought, I'm going to lead an effort here to make Texas at least in the middle of the pack. Instead of being 47th, let's just be 25th. Surely everybody can be for that. And offered an amendment to do it. Now, you know, prior to that session, we heard the governor talking about this great surplus we're going to have, $30 billion surplus that year, implying that it was a result of great good management by these guys who've been in charge of our state government for 30 years. So I checked to see what's it going to cost us to move from 47th to 25th. And the answer was the entire $30 billion surplus, which means that that surplus that we keep hearing about is not a result of good management. It's not even a result of good luck. It's a result of underfunding public education relative to the way the rest of the country does it. And that fact should be taken away. Another fact is this: at the same time, they're reducing the state contribution to public education down to where we're 47th in the nation. They are rapidly and radically increasing the number of charter schools, so that today we have 900 charter schools. They're up and down the street. They're sometimes across the street from the public schools in our community, competing for students. Even though 65% of the charter schools in Texas today receive a D or an F rating from the same agency that gave them the right to open the doors. And even though when we look at the budget, and we see $4 billion in unspent funds sitting on the sidelines and $27 billion sitting in what's called a rainy day fund, where we have plenty of money to address these needs. Even though we have that, we short our public school system. And then we spend $1 billion on private school vouchers to help private schools compete even more vigorously with our public school system. Now, what does that say? When you remember the same people have been in charge the whole way, what it says is they are not in favor of public education. They are trying to privatize the school system. And everything that has been said today and everything that you all said today is basically commenting on the pieces of a campaign that's underway to privatize the public school system. And I hope that in this coming election, we can open the eyes of people that the interest of 5.2 million public school students are being put third behind the privatizers that want to operate charter schools and the ideological advocates of private school education who have managed to get their foot in the door for the first $1 billion. And you're right, it's going to become a whole lot more expensive. So forgive me, I'm supposed to be asking questions for making a speech, but I couldn't resist.
Do you think this is it's a campaign to dumb down America? Right? So we don't know what's going on, so we don't know the issues, so we're not educated, so we don't get good jobs. Are they just trying to dumb us down?
Well, thank you. Go ahead.
I just want to follow up. Thank you so much for your comments. And I just want to throw something out, because we talked about administration and administrator salaries, particularly superintendents. Perhaps it's time that the legislature start thinking about changing the law and allowing superintendents to negotiate their salaries. Because if teachers cannot negotiate for their salaries and benefits, then neither should the superintendents.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much to our panel. It was a great discussion once again. And just to stay on time, we're going to go over to our next panel, Ms. Chelsea Holden.
I want to thank you for having me, and I'm going to introduce you to my friend Puente. He is a capybara, and he is known in Hollywood as rodents of unusually large size, and he originates from South America.
If you can just introduce yourself and your organization.
My name is Chelsea Boyd, and CB Holden. I'm here with Holden Light and Indivisible 915. I want to make sure I'm recording that. Real quick, I'm sorry. Oh, it's recording. Okay, great. Okay. Thank you. I had a speech prepared, but after listening, I decided to free speak my way. What is this immigration? How does this affect us so? I think it makes our education really blow. Why does it suck so? It's because the system was designed for it to be so. I'm from Texas, but I've traveled all around. I've had plenty of education. Inequality has been the main sound. We brought in schools back in the day. You remember segregation. It's still that way. We cut funding in Texas to the black and brown. I've seen it firsthand. My heart's broken and bound. I hoped for change, for people to care, but we let admin continue to cut and guilt trip. How fair? These children are ours, as I have kids too. We all fight for equality. They have brown skin too. Racism doesn't stop in violence in our streets as you continue to write laws and change rules on paper sheets. Racism starts in politics like this, as you have the opportunity to fight for this. Our Texas land is full of immigrants all around. If I have some more time, I'll share another round. I am here today to stand, speak, and unite in solidarity with humans, the ones we currently label immigrants. I am a military spouse who has had the privilege of living all around our nation. Since I was 18 years old, I have lived, worked, and raised children in a variety of communities all around our nation. My husband has served this country our entire adulthood. I only say this because in every state, community, and neighborhood I have lived in, I have had a neighbor who has migrated from a different country. My business partner was from Ukraine, and he still owns a successful pizzeria. My neighbors were a family from China, a woman I look up to because she was so successful and driven, a role model. I was living in Hawaii. My neighbor there was from Mexico. It's a beautiful thing to learn where traveling can take you, because if I never left my hometown, I wouldn't have learned how to make tamales in Hawaii. I wouldn't have learned how to make the best coquito in Kansas if my neighbor from Puerto Rico didn't migrate and meet me there. I have dined and worked alongside women who have migrated from Vietnam. They were all my neighbors and friends, and people who have built incredible things inside of a country that they are proud to contribute to. And there are many more people that I could list. These neighbors hold the same labels we currently have locked up today, without proper jurisdiction, running under private security tape, providing inhumane conditions to people who have left other countries and homelands to come contribute to our land. We don't even provide clean drinking water because we decided that they are no longer our neighbors. If every immigrant were to stand up in America, there would be less than 3% of the population left, because that is what is left of the population that is what is left of the indigenous population when the first immigrants started documenting this land as America. Is a barren land really what we want, or do we want our neighbors back? Thank you.
Well, I can't tell you how proud I am to represent this community. This was such a phenomenal hearing, and I mean it when I say that I'm going to do all that I can to amplify your voice in Austin. When we have these hearings in Austin, it takes several weeks for the transcript to come out, but look for it within 24 to 48 hours. We'll post it on social media. It will also go on the caucus's website, or at least I'll push to get it on there. So look to have, I hope it does you justice in terms of your testimony and your participation. Everybody who's here today will be a part of that report. Representatives, I don't know if you have any closing remarks, but I just can't thank you enough for also making the trek here to El Paso to listen to the people of El Paso.
It's a pleasure to be in El Paso anytime. Thank you for inviting us here, and what a great experience to get to experience the people of El Paso tonight. Thank you.
Yes, I just want to say also just thank you so much. To travel all this way and hear some different perspectives on things was really incredible. I'm grateful to my colleague here for making sure this happened today.
Thank you. And I also want to thank our panelists for being here today, for everybody who provided testimony. I also want to thank the El Paso Community Foundation for being our great hosts in this great facility. Maggie and Stephanie, thank you for your help. To our volunteers who are helping us sign up people at the front from various organizations, thank you for your assistance. And for Max and Cody, the staff with the Legislative Caucus, thank you for putting in the work. They drove all over here to be with us and to help with the event. I also want to thank my staff, Jose Landeros and Ivan Munoz, who just put in a lot of time to get this ready for today. So thank you to everybody who made this possible. Thank you again for everybody. We're going to do this again.